This is All India Radio. In the program Spotlight, now we bring you a discussion on India's presidency and its quest for an expanded UN Security Council. The participants are Veena Sikri, former diplomat, and Simran Sodhi, journalist.
We have seen that the discussions for an expanded UNSC has been there for a while now, but there really doesn't seem to have been any real development forward. Ambassador Sikri, when we see these negotiations that have been going on for quite some time now, why do you feel it is taking so long for the UNSC to reform itself?
Well, this is a very, very complex question, and it is a question of very, very long standing. I'm sure you remember that way back in 1950, India was offered the permanent seat on the Security Council. In 1950 by USA and in 1955 by the then Soviet Union. This was because at that time, Republic of China was being taken off from its membership of the Security Council, and the Chinese Communist Party-led PRC was coming into the UN. And so there was a question of who would take that seat on the Security Council. At that time, India turned it down. And now we are trying very hard to get onto the Security Council. Right now, it is a very contemporary and important subject today because as of January this year, India has been elected to a 2-year term as a non-permanent member of the Security Council. So for all of 2021 and 2022, India is going to be on the Security Council in a non-permanent category. And during this time, India has been planning and very carefully strategizing as to what their agenda for the 2-year term on the Security Council is going to be. And certainly on this agenda, gaining final approval for India's permanent seat on the Security Council is very high on the agenda. From 1st of August this year, India is going to be president of the Security Council for 1 month. This is a rotating presidency of the Security Council. It goes in alphabetical order, and France is the president for the month of July. And on the 1st of August, India is going to take over as president of the Security Council. So we can see already that during the last few months, the government of India, the foreign minister, external affairs minister, the foreign secretary have all been planning very hard for this. Now, why is it taking such a long time, as you said? Because this has now become a very complex geopolitical issue. Nonetheless, it is worthy to recall at this point that all the existing permanent members of the Security Council, there are 5 existing permanent members, and of these 5, 4, France, UK, USA, and Russia, have all expressed full support for India's elevation to the permanent membership of the Security Council. It is only China who has not yet given approval and who is talking about a package deal and there's so many things to be done and so on and so forth. But let us at this stage look a little bit beyond that and see what is it that India has to do to convince people. And I think in this way, there is a grand strategy that India is building up to look at the issues. What are the aspects that India should be focusing on as they go about convincing the entire membership of the UNGA and the existing permanent members of the Security Council on the need to accept India as a permanent member? I think some of the important issues that I would like to highlight as this, and I think India will be working on them very carefully and very strongly. First is on counter-terrorism. This is a very important aspect, and I think that India's presidency of the Security Council for 1 month in August, and as such during the next 2 years, and in the UNGA General Assembly, India is going to work very hard on this, trying to get world agreement on a global convention on counterterrorism, getting the definition of terrorism accepted by the world body, and working ahead to make sure that this terrible curse of terrorism and violence ends once and for all, and that we have in place a global convention on counterterrorism that will call out terrorism for what it is. Terrorism is a crime against humanity, and it must be recognized as it is and accepted as it is, and action must be taken by the world community wherever such acts and wherever such acts of terrorism take place.
Ambassador Sikri, just to bring us to the thing that the UNSC has also been criticized very often of no longer being representative of the current world that we live in. The critique is increasingly that it reflects a world which is very post-World War II, and you have major countries like India, South Africa, Japan, which are missing. We've also seen countries like Germany and South Africa, they've also supported India in a push that the UNSC has to be expanded so that it represents the present world scenario. Do you feel that this is something, one, that the present members of the UNSC, the P5, as you had mentioned, recognize the fact? And two, as you had mentioned, that China remains the main obstacle to the reforms, especially to India's entry. Do you feel that China can be then convinced to change its position?
You are right that yes, the world community does accept that, the present structure of the Security Council is frozen in time way back from the end of World War II, or maybe from the time of 1945 to 1949 when the Chinese Communist Revolution succeeded. But how do you move forward from that? That is what I was talking about, that when the world is recognizing, all the members of Security Council, including China, recognize that yes, something has to be done because we have to make a representative world body. If you don't have a representative world body, it will not work. So this has been there for the last several decades. But now, today, as India has a 2-year term as a non-permanent member of the Security Council, India is strategizing to see how we can take this issue forward. Because while the world in general terms recognizes that yes, this is all out of date, we have to change it, but how do you do it in practical terms? What are the principles you're going to put into position? Yes, people say India is a large country and so on and so forth, and a huge economy, maybe soon it will be the third or fourth largest economy in the world, so we should be there. But just saying these generalizations is not enough to convince the world community to come on and support you. So that is why we have already put in place an important strategy as to how we are going to convince the world community, including all the members of the Security Council, that the time is now and that the time has come for India to be taken on as permanent member of the Security Council. And there are 3 or 4 areas that are vital for India, and we have to show these areas in which India has major contribution to make. Either we have already made that contribution, or we are in the process of making the contribution, or we are working towards making that contribution. That is number 1. And number 2, that India's contribution is indispensable. It is vital for attaining the solution of that problem. And this is where I took up this issue of counter-terrorism as being very high on India's agenda, because all parts of the world are suffering from terrorism. Europe is suffering from it, USA is suffering from it, Southeast Asia is suffering from it. Every country in the world is facing this problem of terrorism, and they are floundering that they're not able to find a solution. Today, terrorism is a global phenomenon, and you put it down in one place, it comes up in the other place. So the only answer to that is to have a global convention on counterterrorism, and that is what India has been working on, and we hope through the next 2 years, by the end of next year, we will be able to convince the world community on this. The second important aspect is maritime security. Maritime security, again, is vital because the majority of world trade is going by sea. And if the sea lanes of communication are not free and open, then it is very dangerous to world trade, to world development, to world prosperity, and to world stability. So this is a very important aspect. And here, the Quad, the Indo-Pacific, all these come in a big way. And India has a very important role to play, because of our geopolitical situation. At the crossroads of the world maritime lanes of communication, the Indian Ocean is at the heart of the Indo-Pacific. And I think that as we have a very big navy, a strong and powerful navy, and we are playing a very big role in working out and ensuring that maritime security is maintained and world trade is free and open. Third very important thing, where India has already demonstrated a very significant contribution, is in the UN Peacekeeping Operations. Over these years, India has made an extraordinary contribution to UN peacekeeping, and as many as 49 occasions, 200,000 troops in different parts of the world and different times during these past decades. We have also sent an all-women UN peacekeeping contingent to Liberia, which was very well accepted and very well recognized by the UN. So this UN peacekeeping operations are playing a vital role in maintaining peace and security in different parts of the world wherever there is conflict. And India's contribution on this has been so significant and strong that just by this alone, India's position as taking up permanent membership becomes very strong. Another aspect is India's contribution in science and technology, in information technology, in the pharmaceutical industry, the making of vaccines, and giving vaccines to the rest of the world, all these issues contribute that India's role in world health, in world peace and security is too large and too significant to be ignored. And India's leadership role in these areas can only be fully developed by bringing India as a permanent member of the Security Council. So these are the 4 or 5 issues in which India is planning to develop its role. It is undertaking initiatives through the UNGA and the UN Security Council, and I am sure that very soon you're going to see a sharp growth and development in the support for India's permanent seat on the Security Council.
Ambassador Sikri, we've also seen that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has many a times pressed for reform of the UN Security Council, and he has been joined by the UN General Assembly President and even the French President Emmanuel Macron. He has also called for an overhaul of international cooperation mechanisms. Macron has gone to the extent of underscoring that the UNSC is no longer producing useful solutions today. So we see that there are a lot of strong, important voices, including that of Prime Minister Modi, which has come out time and again and pressed for these reforms. And the discussion also has focused on the veto power of the P5, and there has been a general sense that maybe an expanded UNSC is being delayed time and again because the present P5 are reluctant to share this veto power. Do you feel that this critique has some merit to it?
Yes, certainly it does, because those who have power are reluctant to give it up. This is the way of the world. And it doesn't only apply to the veto power in the UN Security Council, but it applies to every other part of the world. So those who have the power think that they can insist that they are right because they have that power, and they can apply the veto, and they can prevent the UN Security Council and the UN General Assembly or its various organs from moving ahead and taking actual decisive action on so many issues. So certainly there is a feeling that this UN veto power has become obstructionist. So there is a need to look at it and to make sure that there is a way in which it works. So certainly when looking at the reform of the UN Security Council and looking at the question of increasing the permanent membership, together with that, this issue of the use of the veto power is certainly one of the issues on the agenda of reform of the UN Security Council. How it will work, it depends on, there are so many ideas that are being talked about. So you will have an expanded number who will be permanent members of the Security Council. First of all, probably the size of Security Council will be expanded. Certainly, it will have to be expanded beyond the present 15. It may go up to, say, 25. And within that 25, you may have a larger number than just the present 5 who will be permanent members. There is also talk of having maybe a 2-tier. So first is the permanent members, then is the second tier, which is long-term non-permanent members. So they will not have a short 2-year term, but a longer term. So there's so many permutations and combinations which are being discussed in this regard. And what will work out finally is a matter of discussion and consensus building. Maybe in the end, this whole issue will have to go to a General Assembly where all the members will have 1 vote each, and then we will see how it works out there. So there are many complexities, but I certainly think that this matter is very high on the agenda for India. And I mentioned all these specific issues for a certain reason, because when you ask the world community and individual countries of the world that India should be given permanent membership of the Security Council, you cannot just demand it. You have to seek the respect of the world community and the recognition and acceptance of India's need or India's request for a permanent seat on the Security Council. You have to get this acceptance based on what you are doing, based on the initiatives you are taking, based on the leadership role you are playing in so many important areas. So this is what it is. This is what we are building up. And in this respect, I mentioned all these issues like maritime security, UN Peacekeeping Operations, Counter-Terrorism activities, and so many other pharmaceutical industry, ICT industry, the modernization of the economy and so on. So these are all points that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has been focusing on. Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. This is how you're doing it, taking everybody together. And when you actually show the results to the rest of the world, I feel sure they will be convinced.
And we will continue to follow India's strategy for an expanded UNSC. With these comments, we bring today's discussion to an end. Thank you.
Thank you.
You were listening to a discussion on India's presidency and its quest for an expanded UN Security Council. The participants were Veena Sikri, former diplomat, and Simran Sodhi, journalist. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. You can listen to it on our mobile app News on AIR. This program is also available on our YouTube channel News on AI are Official. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsttalks@gmail.com.